What is up, y'all? Welcome back. 357 Sig ammo test series number 14. We are back with more controlled expansion from DoubleTap. This time we have the 125 grain. Last time was 115 grain, and next time will be 147. So stay tuned for that and check out the old one. The other one, not even old, that was just like last week. But anyway, this one should prove to be somewhat similar to the 115 grain, I would assume. It looks very similar to the other one. It has kind of a narrow but pretty deep hollow point cavity. And being a little bit heavier, it's going to be a little bit slower, going 15.25 out of a 4.5-inch barrel. I normally don't like to reuse blocks too much, but when you have similar ammunition, sometimes it's cool to stack them in the same block. So we're going to keep that block from the 115 grain. We haven't even pulled the projectiles out yet. That's what that looks like, but I would still recommend looking at the test to see the slow motion and everything else. However, I think this one might get just a little bit deeper. It might be a little bit less violent. Let's check it out. Testing protocol in general will be two different firearms. The first one being a Smith & Wesson M&P metal in 357 Sig with a 4.25-inch barrel. The second one being a 357 Sig Nightmare 5-inch 1911. Iron-sighted, red-dotted. We're gonna use these firearms hopefully to get pretty close to those center rings of these B8 targets. Hopefully we can catch those shots going past the Garmin and through the Caldwell. Then we're gonna send one into the gel block through each one of those firearms. The first block is a 16-inch 10% clear ballistics gel block. The second one is a backup block that is a 20-inch 10% clear ballistics gel block. Accuracy will be practical accuracy, shooting offhand. That will be at 21 feet off the target. The gel block hits will be 15 feet off the target. Testing explained, let's get to shooting. All right, first up is the M&P with a red dot. Point of aim, point of impact isn't exactly the concern. It's grouping that's concerned. We are zeroed at a specific distance, and this is not it. So let's see how this goes. Not too bad. We are close to the X circle. 1518.3 and 1522 downrange. We shot a little bit low on that one, and I know that I was on the X ring for that. .9, 1509 down there. And what I mean by that is I was on the X ring for both of those shots. I was on the X itself. That one shot more consistent with the last shot, 1510 and 1515.4. That one did hit the X ring at 1467.4 and 1471. That one shot really low. That's abnormally low. 1488.1 and 1459 downrange. Let's go take a look. Look at that.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
That's a keyhole, isn't it? All right, we have a little bit of oddity going on here. Not a bad group in here until you call into question that one. This red dot should be on, and we're gonna go ahead and try that out here real quick with some range ammo just to put that to the test for sure. However, and what I mean by on is secured, not wobbling around. So these are pretty acceptable. Hit the X ring once. I was aimed here every single time. This one down here is way off. That's crazy. That is that far off. And if I'm not mistaken, I almost see keyholing going on here. That's an abnormal looking hole. I mean, something could have splashed back out, but I don't see the splash out. We are on a wood backstop, but we have what appears to be a decent hit, decent hit, decent hit. Maybe a somewhat questionable hit here, and then we have definitely a questionable hit here. So let me run some normal range ammo through this gun real quick just to put this to rest. All right, 147 grain hand loads that I made. These are slow moving. They're just made for comfortable range shooting, taking the class, things like that. And I'm just gonna take my time, shoot a group. I don't care about velocity or anything like that. I might even put this on speedy mode, but I'm gonna shoot a 5-shot group. Let's see what we get. Let's go take a look. So this was the one over here that I kind of threw out of the group, but otherwise we have 1, 2, 3, 4 right in there. You can see looking at that group that is not shooting that well. Same gun, hand loads and factory loads. I don't know what's going on here, but I think it might have something to do with that oblong looking hit. All right, we know we can't blame the dot, we can't blame the gun, and I don't think we could blame the shooter, but let's see how the combo of me, the 1911, and this ammo get along. Right at the top of the X circle, 1551.2, 1558 downrange. X itself, 1538.2, 1540. $1529.5, 1530. $1556.3, 1556 downrange. And 1544.4, 1544 down there. Let's go take a look. All right, much better over here. Still not totally perfect, but much better. This gun is very accurate when we're having a good day. We don't have any flyers. I don't see any oblong hits. This one I thought might be kind of questionable, but that's only a kind of. I think we're probably good as far as possible tumble, at least on these 5. I'm gonna go ahead and load up my range loads, and I'm just gonna go ahead and shoot it at this target and see if we do anything like this or if we tighten it up. All right, that was 5. Let's go take a look. All right, so very non-scientific here. We laid one group on top of another one. This one shot a little bit higher with the 1911 for me today, but overall, you can see it is a little bit of a tighter group with the 1911. That tighter group fell within the grouping pretty much of the other one. So I will say we are lacking a little bit in the accuracy department on this one out of the 1911 and out of the M&P, and we don't know what that is still. So take that into mind, or into consideration, but keep in mind that is still within handprint for defensive distances, defensive uses type of scenarios usually. I wouldn't want to stretch out too far with anything that's not super accurate, but I think it'll get the job done at least up close. Let's put it in a gel with these 2 guns and see what happens. All right, hopefully I can smack it where it needs to be for what we need to see. I think we got it exactly where we want it. 1496.2, 1519 downrange. Let's go take a look. All right, I am surprised that we got that accurate hit where I wanted to put it, because we do have slight oblong entrance, meaning that bullet was not totally centered or stable when it hit the gel block. And you will see that here in 1 second from the side view. You can see it kind of started to do what it was supposed to do as a normal jacketed hollow point would. But as you can see, we enter right here. We shed a little tiny piece of copper that went up towards the top, but it did not hit straight. It looks like kind of a normal wound cavity. It starts to settle down a hair at 6 inches, but then it winds right back up again. At least that's the twisty turny we have now. So it continues on through that 16-inch block. Then it settles down for the most part, gets to more of a piercing wound channel, and it lands all the way out here. Let me stretch this. It lands at about 25 or 25.5 inches. However, that's not supposed to do that, I don't think. We almost came out of the block, we started deviating, and the bullet did not open up like it was supposed to. We have a problem with it not striking face flat totally, and it did over-penetrate, let's put that in air quotes, over-penetrate because we had another air quote bullet failure. And you have to be careful with that bullet failure thing here, because looking from the top, you see the bullet still did a lot of damage, lost a couple pieces of itself, created a nasty wound channel, and it made it all the way through 16 inches of gel block. But then it continued on with less of a wound channel, because if you see right here, pretty much did not open up at all like it was supposed to. It kind of smushed and mushed. We'll see it more when we cut it out. But yeah, that's not supposed to happen. So technically a bullet failure because it didn't perform as designed, I'm sure, but not a bullet failure because it definitely would have incapacitated things probably. It still has a huge energy jump, and it still put a heck of a hole in something that would have a nasty permanent wound cavity, a nasty temporary wound cavity, and probably put a hole in one side and a hole out of the other side, meaning 2 holes in the same, let's say, thing that you're shooting. All right, let's see if we can get any information out of a 1911 shot when this thing hopefully performs like it's supposed to before we commence to destroying the block anymore. I think I know where I want to shoot. Hopefully that didn't interfere too much with anything else. We have 1552.8 and 1563 downrange. Let's go take a look. All right, as you can see, the one on the right that we just took is more of a better hole, a better entrance. You see it is not oblong or slammed down like this other one is just a little bit. You can see the bottom edge of it being tilted. So the one on the right with the 1911 did what it was supposed to do. You actually see a piece of copper trying to come back out of that hole. Looking at it from the side, we can see that it actually did some pretty cool stuff. It expanded rapidly when it got into that gel. It has a big starburst effect that goes up to 3 inches. It still continues to mangle that gel as it rips through and loses more copper pieces of itself and probably some lead here and there. That chaos goes on to about the 8.5 inch mark, 9 inch mark actually for some of those pieces, still shearing off as what's left of the projectile starts veering upward and skyward, landing at right about 13.25, maybe 13.5 inches, flattened out, shredded apart, not looking too good, but did its job and got to an adequate depth after dropping a whole bunch of energy. So I would say this one performed like it was supposed to, where the M&P didn't perform ideally, but still left some performance tracks in its wake. Let's take a look from the top. So the two things you're going to see here is it is different from the M&P hit up top that didn't do the same thing. And you're also going to see compared to the 115 grains coming in from the other direction, it does perform differently. However, it still has the same idea. Big kinetic impact, shed some stuff in the beginning and then trail off to more of a piercing wound channel, and whatever is left of that bullet is what's left, and it's going to go as deep as you see it right there. So pretty cool. I think I'm going to go ahead for you guys and try to smack this block with the M&P one more time down in that lower right-hand corner, see if we can get some performance out of that one. But yeah, that's what you're getting out of these type of things. Major energy dump with another continued piercing wound channel going through to drive a little bit deeper. But they definitely wreck themselves, that's for sure. All right, one more chance, but I'm actually not going to aim at that lower right-hand corner in case this thing goes low. The last thing I want to do is shoot my table. That'll really wreck my day, so I'm pretty much going to aim off to the left and center and see what we get. Went exactly where I was hoping it would go, 1503.7 and 1519. Let's take a look at that one. All right, that's the one we're looking at. Much better than that strike we're looking at there. It did what it was supposed to do in this one. Let's look from the top. That's about the only view you're really going to see anything. All right, camera guys, at a slightly upward angle, I've actually laid the block on its side. So it looks like the side, but it is looking down from the top. That's the track we're looking at. So it did what it was supposed to do, and it pretty much did what the other one did. The other one we're looking at is down here. That was the 1911. That was a good strike. So they're very similar, just a little bit different velocities. Now, they landed at almost the same place. We got a touch farther with that M&P, about 1/2 inch. So nothing really much more to explain. You see what you see. You know what it looks like when it works. You know what it looks like when it doesn't work. All right, from left to right, we have the M&P that did not work correctly, the M&P that did work correctly, and the 1911 that really worked. So I'll give you this one a little spin around. You're going to see where it definitely hit sideways and kind of smushed itself. It didn't hit into that hollow point like it was supposed to, so it kind of sheared the edge of that hollow point off. You can see what happened to the jacket. It's definitely not a bonded bullet. At least I'm not going to call it bonded. That jacket is totally separating, and that's what makes this thing shred apart so much in gel. So that's what happens when something hits not exactly on center like that, but hits over there like that, rolls, does whatever it does. So we'll check that out in a minute. Here's what it does when it's supposed to work properly. There's even gel stuck in it, but it's all mangled. It's peeled back on itself. Like I said, not really bonded. It loses copper and it loses lead. It's smushed out like a mushroom. You saw a piece of jacket come right off of it right there. So all smushed to pieces, but still did its chaotic little job in the gel block like it was supposed to. Here's the one from the 1911. That one totally separated as I tried to dig it out. They don't have any problem shredding themselves with a little bit more velocity. That's what's left of that. It's not going to be a little funny measurements right there. There's not going to be a whole lot to measure properly, but let's get some weights first. The weight on the handicapped one from the M&P is 118.7. We have about 100 grains left of the one that properly came out of the M&P. And then what came out of the 1911 at the end of the wound channel was that, 74.8. That lost a ton of itself throughout that gel block. I mean, it's kind of a silly measurement at this point, but 0.632 out of the M&P and 0.60 out of the 1911. So there's the information. Use it as you see fit. It is valuable information. We know that that ammunition does not get along with at least one firearm. This is why you have to test your ammunition that you're going to use. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Thank you for watching this test. Hope to see you at the next one. And until then, stay safe, have fun, and keep shooting.